Vladimir Putin's defense team on full alert as a UK-bound plane is forced to land in Russia. 230 passengers, emergency landing. Britain-bound flight diverted deep into Siberia. Mystery malfunction mid-flight or something more. Why did this Airbus plane suddenly divert? Manchester-bound flight lands in Russia, leaving passengers stranded in Putin's backyard. Amid rising tensions with NATO, a UK-bound flight set off alarm bells in Russia after an unexpected diversion. A UK-bound Hainan Airlines flight made an emergency landing in Russia after reportedly suffering a technical malfunction. The Airbus A330 was carrying 230 passengers from Beijing to Manchester when it was forced to divert. The 7-year-old Airbus reportedly developed a technical malfunction around 4 hours into the flight, prompting the diversion. The flight reportedly circled over Divnogorsk before landing safely at Siberia's Krasnoyarsk airport after the emergency. Russia's emergency ministry deployed 51 personnel and 15 vehicles to the airport after the emergency alert was raised. Russian authorities said the aircraft and airport infrastructure suffered no damage during the incident, with the landing completed safely. Putin's defense team was reportedly placed on full alert as the aircraft prepared to make its unexpected landing in Russia. No deaths or injuries were reported after the plane touched down safely at Krasnoyarsk airport following the diversion. The emergency landing comes as Britain has warned against all travel to Russia amid continuing security concerns and heightened tensions. As the Russian Navy flexes its muscle, Britain fears it may lack the naval firepower needed to protect commercial shipping from a possible Russian seizure campaign. On August 12, Putin ordered Russian forces to prepare to inspect and detain European ships, framing the move as retaliation for Europe's crackdown on Russia's shadow oil fleet. The order came after Britain and European allies moved to board, detain and sanction tankers linked to Russian oil exports, which Moscow has described as piracy. A top Russian naval officer identified Britain as a possible target, suggesting Moscow could focus on states most closely associated with moves against its shadow fleet. Britain now fears Putin could seize cargo ships while the Royal Navy lacks sufficient firepower in distant waters, especially across the heavily contested Indo-Pacific. Moscow reportedly has data on 27 British-linked vessels that sailed near the Kuril Islands, where Russia's Pacific Fleet recently carried out major military exercises. British military planners are most worried about Russian seizures in the Indo-Pacific, where commercial traffic is vast but the Royal Navy's permanent presence is extremely limited. Britain has only 2 patrol ships deployed across the Indo-Pacific, according to the Telegraph, leaving a huge area of sea with little immediate British naval cover. HMS Tamar and HMS Spey are lightly armed river-class patrol vessels, built mainly for presence missions rather than direct combat against heavily armed Russian warships. Notably, Russia's Varyag cruiser also joined military drills off the Kuril Islands this week, giving Moscow a much more powerful naval platform near the routes of concern. Former Royal Navy head Admiral Lord West said, and I quote, "Our Navy has been reduced and reduced and reduced, and we do not have enough ships to fulfill our role to look after global shipping. It's extraordinary that successive governments have allowed us to reduce our Navy in such a way. The patrol ships are there to show a presence. But going back 30 years ago, there were 4 or 5 ships that would be steaming around here, not just 2. Unquote. Britain once planned to expand its military footprint through an Indo-Pacific tilt, projecting a more consistent regional presence. But the Russia-Ukraine war forced the Royal Navy to prioritize the North Atlantic and Arctic closer to home. Those competing missions have left fewer British assets available for the Indo-Pacific, even as Russia now signals it may use Pacific waters to retaliate against European shipping. 2 aircraft carriers remain in service, but they require major escort groups, maintenance periods and large crews before they can be deployed into a serious crisis. 6 destroyers remain in the Royal Navy's surface fleet, limiting Britain's ability to provide simultaneous missile defense, escort and global presence missions. 5 frigates remain after Type 23 retirements, creating a major gap until newer Type 26 and Type 31 warships arrive in sufficient numbers. 2 patrol ships operate in the Indo-Pacific, providing visibility and diplomatic presence but lacking the firepower to confront major Russian surface combatants. Most hunter-killer submarines are currently out of action, reducing Britain's ability to track Russian vessels and submarines far from home waters. One Vanguard nuclear submarine deploys at a time, maintaining Britain's continuous nuclear deterrent but unavailable for conventional maritime escort operations. Britain plans to build 8 Type 26 anti-submarine frigates, designed to track hostile submarines and protect carrier groups and commercial sea routes. 5 Type 31 general-purpose frigates are also planned, offering a more flexible and lower-cost platform for global patrols, escort duties and regional deployments. London has outlined a £298 billion defence investment over 4 years, although the pace of delivery will determine whether the Royal Navy can close its current capability gap. Defence spending is targeted to reach 3.5% of GDP by 2035, reflecting pressure to rebuild Britain's military amid threats from Russia and wider global instability. The government expects a new warship roughly every 9 months by 2029, but Britain's near-term fleet shortage remains a problem if tensions escalate sooner. British officials reportedly fear an unintended naval escalation could trigger a direct conflict with Russia, according to the Times. UK officials are reportedly urging military leaders to restore direct communication with their Russian counterparts to reduce the risk of miscalculation. Former UK Defence Chief Tony Radakin and his successor Richard Knighton reportedly sought contact with Russian General Valery Gerasimov. The UK and Russian defence ministers have had no direct contact since October 2022, highlighting the breakdown in military communication. Moscow has listed Britain among Western countries it considers unfriendly amid worsening relations over Ukraine. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said in June that Moscow was not opposed to maintaining contact with any country. The Russian frigate Admiral Grigorovich fired warning shots near a British yacht in the English Channel, according to reports. Moscow and London said the warning shots were intended to prevent a possible collision rather than signal a direct confrontation. A UK-Russia military hotline remains operational despite the broader breakdown in direct communication between the two sides. Russia has accused Britain of worsening tensions by supporting the 2014 change of government in Kiev. Britain has become one of Ukraine's main military supporters since the conflict escalated in 2022. The UK has supplied Ukraine with Storm Shadow cruise missiles, which Kiev has used against Russian targets.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.